the beginning of my nemesis.
I was introduced to Dora's friends at the club. I tasted alcohol for the first time and also smoked. I was so excited that I forgot my fears of being caught. I danced and partied all night. It was what I had wished for a long time. I was so drunk that I had no recollection of how I got back to the hostel. I woke up late in the afternoon of the following day. I couldn't attend any lecture that day because I was so weak after almost vomiting my intestines out. Dora made jest of me throughout the day and assured me that once I got used to it, I would stop vomiting. The following Friday night, we went out again to party, and this continued for a long time. I didn't realize how many lectures I had missed till my head of department called me to her office one afternoon after class. She said, "I have been hearing of your absence from classes these days. I want to believe all is well with you." I bowed my head in silence, and she continued, "I hope you are aware that examinations will start next week." I was shocked because I had no idea that the timetable for examination was out already. I pretended to be aware and assured her that I was prepared. I got back to the hotel that day and started studying hard for the examination. I tried really hard to resist the temptations of following Dora to our night parties, but the sacrifice was worth it as I aced my exams again with straight A's. Dora kept on hailing me when the results came out. Sometimes she would jokingly call me bookworm. I returned to my party girl lifestyle after the results came out. Before going home for the long vacation, Dora and I planned to move out of the school hostel and rent an apartment off campus. All I had to do then was to make up a convincing lie to persuade my parents. While at home, I missed Dora and our parties, but I pretended to be fine. My mother noticed a change in me, but couldn't point at what it was exactly because my disguise was so perfect. I told my parents of my wish to leave the school hostel 2 weeks before resumption. This further fueled my mother's suspicion and asked, "Why do you want to leave the school hostel? It is the safest place for you to be and most conducive for learning, as it is closer to the library. Moreover, you're still a young girl. You cannot live alone." I wanted to answer her that I wasn't a young girl anymore, but I remembered Dora's warning of never mentioning that to my parents, no matter what. So I answered her calmly, "The water is not good at all. My skin itches all the time. Things are also expensive in the hostel, and my roommates are so noisy. I have reported them several times and requested for room change, but the authorities ignored my petitions." I sounded so convincing that my parents agreed and granted my request. The apartment that Dora and I got was an expensive one, located in the heart of the city and a bit far from school. One of our sugar daddies had paid the rent before resumption. All we had to do was to move in with our belongings. It was now easier to go out without bribing anyone. Most times, we slept at our friends' houses. I was so carried away that I attended lectures once a week because there was always an occasion to grace every day. And if we didn't have anywhere to go, we simply stayed at home drinking and entertaining our sugar daddies. Before the end of the first semester in 200 level, I was gifted a brand new car, which I carried to school to show off to my classmates. I was no longer the quiet and brilliant Omolewa. I was now known as Bella. The results of that semester came out, and I struggled to have B in one course while I had C's and D's in the rest. Dora also had a few C's and lots of F's, and we made jest of each other. You would say, school na scam. We were the hottest girls, both in school and out of school. I was now a social media baddie with thousands of followers. My head of department and course advisor reached out to me several times, but I didn't answer any of their calls. Neither did I visit them in their offices. There was no club in town that I hadn't visited. Bella was the name on every hype man lips. By the end of the second semester in 200 level, I had stopped going to school and I didn't bother myself writing the exams. Somehow, news got to my parents about my flamboyant lifestyle in school, so they decided to pay me a visit. As a sharp girl that I was, I quickly planned with one of my friends and rented a little apartment for 2 days as disguise. Once again, my mother suspected that something was wrong, but I wasn't caught. They prayed for me when they came and asked of my results, which I lied that the results were not yet out. The night I will never forget in my life was the night we attended a house party thrown by a billionaire in another state. We received an invitation to this party 2 weeks earlier through a friend named Cynthia, who was also a socialite. Cynthia had come to town that day and decided to spend the night with us. We were browsing through the social media when she asked, "Have you girls heard of that billionaire all-white party?" Dora answered, "No, we haven't heard of such party. Are we invited?" Cynthia answered with a smile and said, "Of course, you are invited." She brought out 2 invitation cards and handed them to us. I was so happy because I knew we had hit a huge jackpot. We started preparing for the party and bought expensive clothing and accessories because it was an elite party. We traveled to the States 2 days prior to the party and lodged in a 5-star hotel alongside Cynthia and 2 other girls. We were excited when a limousine arrived at the hotel we were lodged in to carry us to the party venue. To our surprise, it was an indoor party in a big mansion located outside the city, but we weren't bothered as we were promised to be gifted millions of dollars just for partying. I felt an air of uneasiness as I stepped out of the vehicle. The atmosphere was strange. I panicked a little. I slowly walked behind the 4 girls as we were led into the house. There were only 5 men in the sitting room when we entered, and they were dressed in all white. The man that led us inside shut the door behind him as he left the sitting room, and I heard the door lock, but I told myself that I was only imagining things. We were led into another sitting room by these men. The room was darker and had only 1 red bulb, providing barely enough light to see clearly. We were offered drinks and everyone drank, talked and laughed. But one thing inside of me told me not to drink the wine. So I pretended to sip my wine while engaging in the conversation. An hour later, the men excused themselves and left us in the dark room. Then the girls started to fall asleep, but I wasn't feeling sleepy at all. The men came back to the room muttering strange words. I quickly pretended to be asleep and I felt someone carry me. I opened my eyes a little and saw the other men carrying the other girls. The men were no longer wearing white. They each had a red wrapper tied to their waist. I started praying in my heart. We were carried to a strange room filled with scary looking figurines and calabash. I figured that it was a shrine. They dropped us in the shrine and left once again. I stood up immediately and tried waking Dora, but she was